all night, and her already bad mood would sink beneath the floorboards as she imagined all the fun Two-Step and Mapper and little Sabine were having without her. "Careful now," old Mr. Calloway called when Magdalys slammed open the front doors and rocketed down the big fancy staircase. "I just mopped." Magdalys slowed a bit so she wouldn't slip and splatter herself all over the stone walking path ahead. Mr. Calloway had escaped a provisional farm in upstate New York long before Magdalys was born, and she tried to be as nice to him as she could. "Sorry, Mr. Calloway," she called over her shoulder. "See you tomorrow." "All right," Mr. Calloway called back. Up ahead, Varney, the orphanage's huge old triceratops, grunted and stomped his feet. Great big folds of flesh hung down from his massive belly and dangled in dollops over each other along his 4 thick legs. The 2 horns poking out from his forehead were dull, and his sleepy eyes had bags under them. But Varney still managed to make the supply runs twice a week and take the kids on field trips to the theater now and then. In the orphanage library's tattered edition of The Field Guide to North American Dinos, Pteros, and Other Assorted Sauria, which everyone just called the Dino Guide, Dr. Barlow Sloane described triceratopses as noble and docile beasts who wanted nothing more than to sit around chewing on grass and leaves all day, but were perfectly willing to ride into battle and march for weeks on end if called upon to do so by their masters. Magdalys always wished she could spend more time with Varney. Dinos were much better than humans, mostly. They didn't make up names for you or judge you for how you wore your hair. They just lumbered around eating and pooping and carrying people places. But it was only a few years ago that New York had passed a law granting black citizens the right to dino ride, and white people in Manhattan still bristled and stared when they saw someone with brown skin astride those massive scaly backs. Magdalys had no idea why anyone would want to keep her from dino riding just because of the color of her skin. But she knew the orphanage certainly wouldn't let any of its wards near any dinos except Varney, and him only every once in a while. So Magdalys mostly had to be content with watching the great beasts cavort along outside her window. The lamplighters, iguanodons, would pass first in the morning, extinguishing the lanterns as the day broke. Then the commuter brackies would stomp past, passengers cluttered on the saddles and hanging from straps along the side. By noon, the streets would fill with stegosaurs lugging supplies and the duckbill riders in fancy dress clothes heading off to important meetings, while microraptors scurried across the roads carrying messages or making nuisances of themselves. Most of the trikes and raptors had been sent down south to fight the Confederates, but every once in a while she'd see one of those too. Magdalys could watch them out her window all day, but it wasn't the same as being out there with the dinos. "Hey-ya!" Marietta Gilbert Smack called out, and Varney heaved forward, pulling the wagon hitch to his back into motion. "No!" Magdalys thought, sprinting through the big ornate gates and closing the orphanage. A stitch opened up in her side. "Wait!" Varney stopped with a snort and sigh. He turned his big horned head and directed a single droopy eye at Magdalys. Magdalys skidded to a halt. Had Varney somehow... It couldn't be. The old trike blinked once, then seemed to nod at her. Magdalys gasped. "Mags!" Two-Step yelled. "Magdalys!" little Sabine squealed. "You made it!" "So you decided to accept your name after all, Margaret," Henrietta Von Marsh said, a smug smile sliding across her face. "No." Magdalys grabbed Two-Step's outstretched hand and heaved herself onto the wagon. "I decided to go to the theater with my friends." "Hold the wagon, Marietta," Von Marsh said with a withering scowl. She glared at Magdalys, who had made herself comfortable on the bench beside Two-Step and